Let's get right into today's explainer, because the source report we're looking at is, frankly, genuinely terrifying. We're doing a clinical, forensic dissection of a fundamentally compromised device. The data in this report reveals empirical, hard evidence of an advanced persistent threat, or APT. Look, this isn't your everyday run-of-the-mill malware. What the source material documents here is a highly sophisticated state-grade cyber espionage weapon. It is designed to completely shatter a device's reality. So we're going to stick strictly to the forensic logs, the diagnostic data, and the hardware diagrams detailed in the report to uncover exactly how this intrusion takes total, absolute control.
Okay, let's dive right into this autopsy. Here is how we'll break it down. First, the root of trust subverted. Then, surviving deep wipes. Operating system lies. Hijacking perception. The contaminated ecosystem. And finally, the terminal diagnosis.
Starting with Section 1, the root of trust subverted, focusing on the hardware compromise.
To really understand what we're up against, the source gives us a very clinical definition of an APT. This is a state-grade intrusion that seeks continuous, silent control by completely subverting a device's hardware root of trust. Unlike typical ransomware that just wants to make a quick buck or immediately break your system to get your attention, an APT operates differently. It prioritizes absolute stealth and long-term dominance over the hardware. It wants to live there permanently without you ever knowing.
The forensic intelligence extracted 4 core capabilities of this threat, and they are brutal. First up is firmware-level persistence, meaning the infection actually lives below the operating system itself. Second, automated re-enrollment. This specifically abuses Apple's automated device enrollment to basically force a reinfection. Third, we have extreme forensic blinding and real-time log manipulation to constantly hide its tracks. And finally, and honestly, this is the part that keeps security analysts awake at night, zero-click exploitations. This means the initial breach happens totally silently, using elite memory corruption payloads, and requires absolutely zero interaction from the user. No clicking a bad link, no downloading a shady file.
Moving to Section 2, surviving deep wipes, the failure of the factory reset.
Let's see how this builds, because the forensic data outlines a terrifying 2-stage reinfection model. It proves, without a doubt, that standard consumer resets are completely useless here. Step 1. The low-level bootkit resides in non-volatile memory. We're talking about the EFI, the bootloader, or the secure enclave processor. Because it's literally hardware-based, it easily survives a complete OS wipe. Step 2. Once the user connects to the internet during that fresh, out-of-the-box device setup, a post-reset payload injection kicks off via an automated Hidden Mobile Device Management, or MDM, profile. The device literally reaches out, pulls down the malicious server payloads, and reinfects itself the very second it touches Wi-Fi.
And the logs explicitly note that this malware survives a DFU restore. Now, DFU stands for Device Firmware Update. It is the absolute deepest possible factory reset a technician can perform, compromising components like the secure enclave processor to survive a DFU restore. That is widely considered the holy grail for spyware vendors. When malware achieves this level of state-grade capability, your hardware essentially flips. It becomes an active adversary against you.
Which brings us to Section 3, operating system lies and diagnostic subversion.
The forensic logs give us this exact, chilling quote: Rec 00XX, state 6078. Conditions did not pass. Analysts saw hundreds of critical diagnostic tasks failing with these uniform, completely undocumented codes, specifically state 6078 and state 60F8. This wasn't just some random system glitch. It was a systemic policy failure. The malware actively suppressed data collection across totally unrelated subsystems, everything from graphics debuggers all the way to secure enclave utilities. The operating system was essentially taking orders from a deeper level to just stop speaking to the auditors.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how deep the blinding goes. If an analyst reaches for core utilities to check the system's health, they just hit a brick wall. Fundamental built-in system binaries, like your system log viewer, directory listing, process status viewer, and system uptime tools, every single one of them reported as not accessible, or they just straight up failed to create child processes. This is a textbook rootkit technique. The malware systematically blocked the primary introspection utilities, completely blinding any forensic analyst who is trying to look inside the device.
This systemic subversion is exactly why typical security sweeps failed to detect the implant's persistence. You might run a standard forensic scanner, something like the Mobile Verification Toolkit, or MVT, and it's going to return a clean result. But
it is a false negative. The scanner isn't finding anything simply because the malware operates entirely beneath the layer where these tools actually look. It's actively hiding its tracks in real time, modifying the logs before the scanner can even read them.
Section 4. Hijacking perception. This is all about UI and network deception.
Now, what's really interesting here is the sheer deception presented to the user. What the user actually sees in their settings interface is a reassuring message claiming no profiles installed, but the forensic reality tells a completely different story. Internal file system configurations reveal hidden MC profile service hooks that are actively establishing covert, encrypted MTLS tunnels right under the user's nose. The report even notes terrifying UI redressing, where hardware security keys, like a YubiKey, will literally show fake errors on the screen while silently granting the attacker full access in the background. The device is secretly enrolled under this hidden ghost boss MDM layer, while the UI is actively gaslighting the user into thinking everything is perfectly fine. And this ghost boss control translates to terrifying real-world interference. Forensic logs showed an unauthorized Roger SIM profile just hiding out alongside the victim's legitimate FIDO SIM, which is direct forensic evidence of a SIM swap. But it gets worse. The attacker engaged in active call hijacking. When the victim attempted to phone support, the compromised baseband actually intercepted the call. This was evidenced by an audible physical click or flip on the line. The connection was then seamlessly redirected to imposters. These fake agents then falsely assured the victim that their case was resolved. This is highly calculated psychological manipulation, designed specifically to discredit the victim and make sure the spyware remains totally undetected.
Section 5. The contaminated ecosystem and proximity sabotage.
When we broaden the scope, the forensic telemetry reveals how the threat actor leverages the victim's entire surrounding environment. The data showed identical sabotage patterns synchronized across 3 completely separate devices. The malware utilized Bluetooth traces for proximity harvesting, and it abused basic cloud synchronization services to quietly exfiltrate data. It essentially creates a localized web of surveillance. The brief notes this as a saturation model, where friends, family, and even legal counsel become compromised merely by physical proximity. It creates a toxic environment that completely isolates the victim and terribly makes their valid reports of being hacked sound like total paranoia.
Section 6. Terminal diagnosis and isolation protocols.
So, the absolutely crucial takeaway here is this final forensic verdict. Firmware-level persistence combined with systemic diagnostic blinding equals hardware that is fundamentally untrustworthy. There is no software patch for this. You literally cannot update your way out of a compromised secure enclave. Any further use of the infected device risks total credential theft and continued psychological manipulation. Simply put, the hardware is a total loss.
Because there is no fix, the report outlines incredibly strict terminal survival protocols. Action 1 is immediate isolation. You have to enable airplane mode and power off the device immediately to sever that command and control connection. Action 2 is Faraday shielding. You must store the device in a way that blocks all incoming and outgoing signals. And Action 3 is physical abandonment. You have to treat the hardware solely as forensic evidence from that point on. It can never ever be trusted for personal use or communication again. We've just walked through the stark forensic data of a fully managed reality. A situation where the machine lies to the user, blocks the auditors, and hijacks the network itself. Which leaves us with a rather chilling clinical question to ponder. If your hardware is fundamentally untrustworthy, if the very screen you're looking at and the calls you're making are being intercepted and altered, what else in your life is compromised?